What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here at GSD Studios. First off, thank you so much for checking out today's content. I'll make this extremely fast, but I need to plug our sponsors that make this show possible. Our first sponsor is PerfectStormNow.com, by far the most effective and affordable real estate agent website and database platform in the industry. It is the system I use to sell 50 plus homes every single month. Check it out at www.perfectstormnow.com. Our second sponsor is my personal 90-day mastery bootcamp, which is, again, my personal real estate agent mentorship program where we spend 90 days together, 12 live sessions. You get daily access to me inside the program. You guys, we go so extremely in-depth. There's nothing that's incomplete about this program. You're going to get all the tools that you need to go out there and crush it inside your real estate business. Make sure to go check us out, www.90daymastery.com. You can watch in-depth videos of exactly what's covered to see if the program is for you. See all the raving testimonials we have from all of the amazing agents and clients that went through the program. So make sure to check us out, www.90daymastery.com. All right, you guys, let's jump on into today's content. What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD mode interview. Every single week, we interview top entrepreneurs and just straight up top badasses that are out there choosing to go out there and create epic lives for themselves and their families, as well as have big impact on others, or choosing to not go out there and live a life of mediocrity. So today, you guys, we got a special guest on the show. I'm really stoked to have on the show. So our guest today is the host of BiggerPockets, also a very active, very successful real estate investor himself, and a best-selling author. So stoked and honored to have Brandon Turner on the show. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, dude, thank you so much for having me. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I'm excited, man. So I know you guys are, anybody that's tied to the real estate industry, I don't think can go really anywhere without seeing BiggerPockets out there, man. I mean, you guys are doing a lot of amazing things out there and provide so much amazing content. And before we get into what you're doing today, I'm always really interested in our guest journeys that led them into entrepreneurship and down this path in the first place. So if you rewind the clocks, whether that's like high school, college, whatever that looks like, I mean, what led you down to this path in the first place?
Sure. So my story kind of begins, people know me as a real estate guy, and then I turned from real estate into or added on internet entrepreneurship as well, right? So I do the BiggerPockets thing, and I still do my real estate investing as well. In fact, I'm probably doing more today. But so I'll rewind at the beginning of the whole thing. I got out of college. Well, went to college, got a degree in history, which means nothing. I mean, I could teach or be a lawyer. I actually was going to be a lawyer. I was like, that's the only thing I can do with my degree. And I started reading all these like John Grisham novels, like The Firm, and I'm like, I don't want to get shot, and that didn't sound appealing. Or working the 100-hour weeks that lawyers have to put in for years and years and years. And the more I learned about law, the more I realized I didn't want to do that life. And so about that time, I bought a crappy little house. I mean, just a piece of junk house. And all I knew, I knew nothing about real estate other than it was cheaper to own than the rent at the time. And it's not true in every market, but mine it was. Cheaper to own, and I knew to buy crappy stuff. Like, I like to buy things that I could, fix up or whatever. I didn't know what I was doing, but I just thought, well, if I buy something cheap, and maybe I can fix it up a little bit and make it nicer. And so that's what I did. I bought a house and I fixed it up. I sold it a year later and I made $20,000. And in that process, I thought, man, that was way more money than I'd ever make as a lawyer, for the amount of work that I put into it. And so I decided I'm not going to go to law school. I hadn't even taken all the tests and everything. I was applying for schools and dropped out of all that, and just decided to go full-time into real estate. So I quit my job actually and started flipping houses, and that's kind of how I got into real estate.
Yeah, no, I love that, dude. So, all right, so you kind of have this personal experience going on. I mean, you're kind of battling internally if law's really for you, and then you stumble across this first property. So then you go out there and sell it. You make up your mind with that. Because a lot of people talk about real estate flipping and investing, but I think most people where they have the fear is, how do I find the deal? And then the bigger fear is, how do I raise the capital with that? So, with that that 20 grand with that property, I mean, how kind of walk us through the next couple deals. Like, how did you go out there and find them and duplicate the process and find the funding and all of that fun stuff?
Yeah. So that first deal, I'd like to say I took all the proceeds and I used it to, invest in the next deal. But honestly, I didn't. I spent every single penny and I bought a wedding. My wife and I got married and we had our dream wedding. And so I blew she she'd be mad if I said that. I spent wisely the money on a nice wedding, and I found myself back at the same spot. I was now had no money again, and I had no job at the time, and so I was I'm gonna go flip houses. Well, how do you afford to flip houses if you have no job, right? So at the time, what I did, my first flip, I used what's called a hard money lender. Now, maybe you're familiar, your audience is familiar with that or not, but a hard money lender is a guy or girl or company that will lend on a real estate deal differently than a bank. A bank wants to do tons of paperwork and they're going to do all this background checking, and still at the end of the day, they got all their policies to go through. A hard money lender is like yes or no. They're going to decide they're going to do it or not based on a lot more simple criteria, primarily the deal. If it's a good deal, a hard money lender is going to fund it, but they're so expensive. I mean, I was paying a 10% fee on top of the money. So like if I borrowed 80 grand, I'd pay $8,000 in fees and then a 10% interest on top of that. Some lenders are, 15% interest with a 5% fee, or 13 and 2 or 13 and 5. They're all over the board, but the point is they're way more expensive than a bank, and they're short term. So the guy gave me a year to get in and out of a flip, and so I used hard money lenders to get started. I did a number of flips and even bought some rental properties using hard money. And that's it's a strategy that still works today. There's actually way more hard money lenders today than there were back then. You just got to be careful because you got to get in and out quickly, and you got to make sure you budget for all that because, man, they're expensive.
Yeah, man. So, and I agree. I mean, the budget's the key, right? Because you might see the spread in the deal, but a lot of people aren't thinking about the time on market and then adding in utilities and all that other stuff, and it just kills some of those spreads if you're not careful with that. So, but this sounds like the first deal that you got. I don't want to say you stumbled across it, but it was kind of. You kind of did, right? I mean, you had a little bit of a strategy with that. I mean, how did you start going out there? You got the finance, you got the funding. How did you go out there and start finding the deals? And then initially, I mean, what were some of those mistakes that you made initially that you learned from that really made you to that successful investor that you are now?
Sure. So when I got started, I was very I don't know the word, willy-nilly about it. I just kind of would just do it. And hey, this one, property happened to cross my path. I'd go after it. I never approached it much like a business. And so things came to me and I would buy them if I just happened to stumble across it. Or maybe I'd talk to my real estate agent and he'd say, hey, yeah, there's this bank repo that just came up or a foreclosure. And I'd go after it. And so I was buying a couple every year, maybe 1 or 2 a year for the first few years. It wasn't until even 5, 6, 7 years into my career, so to speak, that I got a lot more serious about it. I started treating it like a business. So it's how many leads am I getting in? How many offers am I making? How many deals am I analyzing every day or every week? Tracking those numbers. And that's really when my business, I think, shifted quite a bit, was from I'll just see what happens to I'm going to treat this like a guy who owns a McDonald's. I mean, you talk to the guy who's a manager of a McDonald's, right? He's not going to be like, I'm not really sure how many burgers we sell each week. He's going to know exactly how many burgers they sell and how much they need to order and how many employees they need and what hours they're working. That's the difference. So many people go after real estate like it's some hobby, like they're going grocery shopping or something. If you just treat it like a business, which is what real estate is and can be, I think it was a lot easier. So that helped me a lot. So I started MLS only, bought almost everything just off what other real estate agents were selling. And they were back then, I mean, remember this was 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12. So the foreclosures were just everywhere. I mean, everywhere you looked, there was crappy, junky properties. So it wasn't that hard to find good deals back then. That shifted a little bit. I started doing a little bit more. I've done some direct mail marketing. I've done what's driving for dollars, where you just drive around, look for vacant properties and call the owner up. A lot comes from word of mouth nowadays. Just people hear what I do and they want to do. So it's a variety. I've got a website. People, are searching, how do I sell my house quickly? And they come across my website. It's kind of a variety of ways. But I still use the MLS as well. There still are deals to be found on the MLS.
Yeah, love it, dude. So, what do you think? What made it click? Because you were going for a lot of years, kind of, having success with it, but kind of more of that nonchalant approach. And then, it just seems like something clicked, and you're like, all right, man, I'm gonna take this to the next level and treat this as a business. What kind of clicked that made you shift in your mindset?
Yeah, easy. It was honestly starting, when Josh and I started the BiggerPockets podcast, we started interviewing successful people, and it was one after another. We're doing way more than I was doing and working way less. And obviously everybody works pretty hard at this that we talked to, but I mean, how are people doing 5 or 10 deals a month? I talked to a guy a couple weeks ago who's doing 25 deals a month. I mean, how do you do that? like the way they do it is they treat it like a business. So that was when it started clicking, was that the first, 2 dozen episodes that we were recording was, man, like these people are all doing the same thing. And I started thinking, well, what are they doing? And when it really comes down to it, it is a 4-step funnel. You get leads. Well, now there's a lot of ways to get leads, but you get leads. And then your job as an investor is just to analyze those leads as they come in. Is this going to work or not? Yes or no? And even more than that, what price does it work, right? Every deal, there's a number. I mean, sometimes that number is negative, but every single property out there has a price that would make it a home run. So your job as an investor is to get leads, find out what number makes it a home run or a base hit if you're looking for a base hit, and then make that offer. People are so afraid to make an offer, but I try to make an offer at least several every week now, if not once a day. That's kind of my big goal, is once a day, but it doesn't always happen. And then some of those offers that you put out there are going to get a yes. Most are going to say no. I mean, 90% of them, maybe 95% of the offers I make get rejected. In high school, like if you fail 95% of the time, you're a moron, right? And in real estate, if you fail 90% of the time, you're a millionaire, because all it means is you just got to make 10 offers and you get one accepted. You get a home run every 10 offers. Why not make one or 10 a month? If those are your numbers. So there's that 4-step process and that every single experienced investor I know does the same process. They get leads from different ways, but they get leads, they analyze those leads, they make offers, and they get some accepted. And that's what I just realized. It just clicked when I saw that happening over and over and over and over.
Yep, love it, man. So then when you're analyzing the numbers, right, because you're getting these leads coming in, when you're analyzing the numbers, because it just seems like that's where most people go wrong. And I'm sure a lot of it, too, is they're not getting enough leads because, like you said, you got to offer so many properties. But when you're running those numbers, because it's not necessarily when you sell it, it's when you buy it that you're making your money. Yep. I mean, what are some of those things that you're really looking for, and some of the big mistakes that you see maybe more amateur investors making when they're analyzing their numbers?
Sure. I mean, a couple big ones that I find people, you mentioned this earlier, they don't account for a lot of those the little costs that add up over time. Like, for example, if there was a house that when it's all said and done, it's going to sell for $200,000 and I can buy it for, $100,000, right? So $200,000, I can buy it for $100,000 and I can put $50,000 into it. Most people in their head say, great, I'll make $50,000. Well, of course you won't make $50,000. You got to pay a real estate agent, $15,000 to sell that property. You got to pay, closing costs on both sides when you buy it and when you sell it. Your $50,000 rehab is not going to be 50. It's probably going to be 65 because everyone goes over on their budget. And then you got to pay the water, sewer, garbage bill every month. You got to pay taxes, insurance. If you use a lender, you got to pay the lender fees, the lender monthly charges. I mean, all those things add up so that your $50,000 profit might actually be down to $5,000 in profit, zero, negative, right? There was a deal I bought one time. I bought a duplex and I was going to flip it. I was really big into this idea. I'm going to flip that house. And it was an up and down duplex. So what I did is I tore out the staircase that was on the outside of the building and I built my own staircase up the middle of the house. I turned it into a single family house. This beautiful thing. You could see the ocean from the upper floors. And I spent a year of my life invested in this project, working on it. Like, my wife and I were actually over there almost every day working on it. And, at the end of the day, I lost, I think, $10,000 on that deal in 2 years of my life because I did not account for, a year working on it, another year selling it. I didn't account for a lot of things like, I got to, if I put all the repairs on credit card, I got to pay that credit card bill every month. That was like $800 a month. Those kind of things added up over time, ended up losing, $10,000. It could have been a lot worse.
Yep. Love it, dude. So, at what point, because when you're out there flipping a home, you've got a couple options, right? You can wholesale the deal. You can flip the deal, rehab it and flip it, or you can hold on to it. Because I know it sounds like you do kind of a combination of all three. Like, how do you make that decision? Right? Because if you make the wrong decision, you can definitely get stuck very quickly.
Yeah, it's a good question. For me, it comes down to a couple of things. One, is it a property? Long term, I would love to hold everything. In a perfect world, I would hold everything because I firmly believe that the best strategy for passive income and wealth long term is going to be rental properties. I love rental properties, and I think, I'm the kind of guy that pours a bowl of Lucky Charms, and I will eat all the cereal before I touch a marshmallow. And rental properties. I'll pour another bowl of cereal and eat all of that cereal too, and I'll leave the marshmallows to the end because I'm a delayed gratification guy. So rental properties, everything. However, in a practical sense, not everything works as a rental. If I can flip a property and make $50,000, but if I kept it as a rental, I'd only make $10 a month in rent, in cash flow. Well, of course I'm going to flip it. because the numbers just say flip it. So the things I look for is, what does the math say is best? If the math says that flipping it is going to be way better than renting, I'll flip it. If the math says that wholesaling is going to be way better per hour, if I put 1,000 hours into work on a project to flip it, or I put 10 hours into a wholesale deal and I make, comparatively the same amount, I'd rather just wholesale it. And then if it's a property in a neighborhood that I don't want to rent or that isn't going to rent well, I'll choose to sell it or flip it. So really, I just look at every deal and try to figure out what is the best case use for this property based on my needs right now.
Yep, love it, dude. So, a lot of times, people talk about their successes, right? And I know you've had a lot of successes and continue to have a lot of successes, but a lot of people don't always talk about some of those failure moments that truly define us as the successful people that we are. So, like, what were some of those deals that you really got stuck on, but became those amazing learning experiences that make you to the amazing investor you are today?
Yeah, there's so many of them, but one I called my hell house. I'll tell you that one story. So I have a house I call the hell house. I bought this house for $40,000. It was at the time a great deal. I found it just walking with my dogs around the neighborhood, and I found this property. It was vacant, and then it ended up coming on the market like a week later. But because I was already like on it, I was the first one to offer on it. Offered full price, got it for $40,000. Great deal, I thought. I ended up sinking $40,000 into that deal, so I got $80,000 into it. Still, it should have been a decent deal. The problem is the neighborhood. I didn't account for how that neighborhood only attracts crappy tenants. Like, really, it attracts the worst. I've had 6 in a row. I think I'm at number 7 right now of really bad tenants. And we're really good at screening. We're really good at trying to keep out the horrible people. Doesn't matter. I mean, that house, it was a weird house. Weird houses attract weird people. That's just a thing I've learned over the years. The more normal house you get, the more normal people you attract. So it's a weird house. There's a lot of weird layout issues that it seems to attract druggies and people who like to deal drugs. And so that was a huge lesson. So lesson learned on that one, look at the neighborhood. I only like to buy now in neighborhoods where I would want to live in. Not that I would live there, but things that I would feel comfortable having my wife and kid walking around the street. Because, again, I don't want to deal with the tenants who are in the other neighborhoods. And also, the weird house thing, I look at that a lot. So that was a couple big lessons. The story I told earlier about that house that I tried to turn into a duplex, I just didn't account for holding costs very well. That was also a weird house too, though, because it was a duplex. I tried to turn it into a single family. It was the best looking house in town on the market, but it was so weird and it was unusual. Nobody wanted anything that big and that grand, and it sat on the market for way too long. So it was weird.
Yep, love it, dude. So, you talked about earlier, like 2008, 2009, the market got hit really hard, and there's huge inventory rates, there's an abundance of great deals. But you fast forward to today's market, where inventory is tight, man. It's seller's market, at least in most areas, it's still a seller's market, and it becomes harder and harder to get those deals. Like, what are you doing now differently today to be able to get those deals? When people can just, they can get top dollar and their homes are selling so fast if they list on the open market. It just seems like in these seller markets, it's tougher and tougher to find deals.
Yeah, that's true. So today I do a couple of things. One, I take it a lot more seriously than I did. I mentioned that earlier that, today I analyze, how many deals am I doing weekly? How many am I offering on? What are my leads? Where are they coming from? I treat it a lot more like a business today, which helps a lot, because most people, even though yes, the market's flooded with investors and flooded with everybody buying properties, there's not a lot of people doing it well. A lot of people are just throwing money. That said, I've had to move away from the MLS largely. That's where everyone's at, right? It's like the pool where everyone's playing in, but that's also where all like the pee is. So like there's like everyone it's gross, right? I don't like to buy there anymore because you just can't find good deals. Because you get these newbies that are coming into the real estate market because they listen to your podcast or my podcast or whatever. And they're like, I'm going to go and buy real estate. And they go and way overpay for a property. We're competing with those people. And that's fine. Like, they need to learn as well. And they're going to buy a bunch of crappy deals like I did. And they're going to learn. But it makes it harder on the experienced guys. So I'm doing some direct mail marketing. In fact, I'm sending out 300 letters tomorrow, trying to get some business that way. Like I said, the website stuff is working okay. The last deal I got last week came from another investor. I just actually called him up and said, hey, you got any deals going right now you don't want to work on? And he had 5 deals going at the same time, and one of them was just more work than he wanted to do. So I said, well, can I buy it from you? He's like, yeah, I'm okay with that. That'd be great. And I'm like, can you carry the contract on it? Can you offer seller financing? Yeah, what are you thinking? So I offered him 8% if he carried the contract on it. He said, yeah, sounds great. So now I've got this deal that I'm working on, and it wasn't on the market. I didn't have to compete with anybody else. I just called up an investor and worked out a deal with them. I know a lot of people we're interviewing on the podcast are using wholesalers, talking to other people who go out there and hustle to find deals, and then they're just buying them off of those wholesalers. I don't do a lot of that because I honestly don't know a single wholesaler in my entire county.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm the guy. I don't live in a very crowded area, so like I'm the guy that does that. So yeah, I mean, really, it's just a matter of being proactive. Like so much of life, right, is like not living reactively. That's what I did for a number of years. I lived reactively, my real estate business was a reactive business when a deal came to me. Today, I'm very proactive about everything that I do in regards to real estate.
Yep, love it, dude. So what would you say is the hardest part of when you get to the point like you talked about before, when you're doing a few flips, a year, or you're doing one at a time, it's much easier to manage the process. Like, dude, my wife and I decided to redo our whole entire backyard. So we gutted it and, putting in a pool and man, just managing contractors on my own house in my own backyard is a freaking pain in the ass. And you got these guys doing 20 deals a month. And I just can't even imagine what that management process is. As you scale up like that, I mean, how do you manage it? Because there's so many different moving parts, dude.
Yeah, it's true. And it's something that I've always struggled with. And I think the key though is it's people. I mean, like you cease to become a real estate investor and you become a real estate business. And you've got project managers, you've got, team leads, and depending on how big your business are. I mean, I know some guys that have 100 people in their business that are trying to help them build their real estate business. I mean, at that point, they're not looking at even house. Like the guys that are doing 25, 30 deals a month, they're not even looking at houses anymore. They're not analyzing deals anymore. They're not doing any of that anymore. They're managing a team of people who are doing those things. So the key in scaling up anything is to build a good, solid team around you. And that, I feel like I've struggled with that. Is like, when's the right time to hire that person? So today I've got 4 or 5 people on my team total. Some are full-time, some are just part-time, but that do different things. I heard a quote from somebody, I don't remember who it was, that he was a billionaire, and they asked him the secret to his success. And he said, "I'm a quitter." And they said, "Well, what do you mean you're a quitter?" He's like, "I'm a quitter. That's why I'm a billionaire." He said, "Everything that I do is designed for one thing: to quit. I want to figure out how to do something, and then I'm going to quit it as fast as I can and find somebody else to do that, so I can go try to build another system, and I can quit that, get somebody else running that." And so the key is finding good people, building those systems, and then getting out of the way so that they can do their job.
Yep, love it, dude. So what led you guys to starting the podcast? I mean, how'd that all come about?
Yeah, good question. I mean, so at the time, like I had bought an apartment complex when I was 25 or 26, something like that, about 24 units at one big shot. And it was enough to quit my job. I was like, all right, well, now I'm kind of quote unquote retired. So I was 27 and I stopped. And I said, I'm never going to do any work again. I'm going to go sit on a beach for a while. And I went and took a long vacation. And then I was like, well, this is really boring. Now what do I do? So, ended up becoming really good friends over the few years before that. I became good friends with Josh Dorkin, who had started BiggerPockets back when, I was in diapers, and not quite, but when I was younger. And I used BiggerPockets to help me learn how to become a better investor. Just when it was just a forum, it was just a forum online and a blog. And I kind of started just becoming friends with Josh. That turned into me taking over the blog, helping to write more content, kind of organize things. Like, at the time, Josh was trying to do the same thing we were just talking about, right? He was bringing in somebody he wanted to help so he could scale. And I was the guy that he said, "Hey, why don't you come help me scale this?" So then that turned into, I said, "Hey, I don't know if it was him or me, but I said, what if we started recording some interviews and did a podcast?" And it took off from there. I think the first episode we had like 5,000 people listen to it, and we were blown away and thought, I never thought we'd get 5,000 people listening to an episode. And now we're up to 40 million downloads or something like that. So
yeah, that's crazy, dude. That's
crazy.
Awesome, bro. So a couple questions here. One is, are you still buying apartments?
Yes. However, I've shifted this year quite a bit. My goal this year is to buy a mobile home park. And I can go into reasons why, if you want, like why I like mobile home parks. I've never bought one. The more I interviewed a number of people who have done mobile home parks on our podcast. And, every time I get off the call with them, I'm like, that's what I want to do. Like it perfectly fits what my skill set is, which is, managing tenants, turning around properties, finding good deals. And the things I really suck at, which is like dealing with contractors. I just hate that part. Like there's not as much of that because tenants own their own homes. That's the primary reason why. But so I would in a heartbeat buy an apartment complex. The problem is apartment complexes are probably the hottest investment in America outside maybe Tesla. Like, everybody wants an apartment complex. And it's hard to find the good deals. All the people I know that are doing apartments are struggling dramatically. And so, I had a couple options. I could say, well, I'm going to jump in as well, and I'm going to focus really hard on buying an apartment complex and probably have to settle for a mediocre deal. Or I can shift my strategy and find something that works in this market. And in doing my research, and then, the more I looked into it, mobile home parks are kind of where I'm headed. So that's what I'm looking for more. If the right deal came up, but I am treating apartments very reactively, and I'm okay with that. I'm treating mobile home parks very proactively. Also doing a lot of single family stuff still right now.
So when it comes to you acquiring, like this future mobile home park or these apartment buildings or some of your single family attached homes, I mean, do you stay local when you do that so you can manage it on a deeper level? Or, I mean, are you just kind of looking wherever the deal is?
So everything so far has been in my counties. Everything was within 30 miles of where I live. The mobile home park or future apartments, I could care less as long as it's over 50 units. I figure 50 units is like the point where I can hire someone to live at the property and take care of it. Or if it's, hundreds of units, then we hire a team to take over it. But I'd look anywhere in the country if it's 50 units or greater. It would be nice if it was a shorter flight, because I hate flying to the East Coast. I'm like as far west as you can get, and then I'm 2 hours from Seattle. And so like going across the country is like a day and a half affair, I feel like. So
yeah.
It'd be nice if it was in like Vegas or westward.
Yep. Love it, dude. So another question, this is about your direct mail. Sure. So are you sending that direct mail to non-owner occupants out of state and having success with that?
So I've only done direct mail so far, again, in my county, and I just sent it to absentee owners in my county. The letters that I'm sending out this week, though, we're sending to mobile home park owners. I picked like 3 or 4 states. I think it's like Minnesota, Kentucky, Wisconsin, a few, just doing some research. I just kind of picked them, not at random, but in a way at random. Like I'm a big believer, like in when you have a whole lot of stuff. I mean, there's 50,000 mobile home parks in America. Like I'm not going to mail all of them. Right. So I said, well, what can I focus in and get really good on? Let's just pick a few states. I'm from Minnesota. I grew up there. So that's my first choice. I'm going to choose Minnesota. I chose Kentucky just because I found a really good list of mobile home park owners, Washington State as well. And that's kind of how I chose them. So I'm sending direct mail starting tomorrow to mobile home park owners in that area. And I'll probably start up my direct mail again to single family owners here in my area. Just because the flipping thing seems to be working well right now.
Yeah. So, those that, because we've got a big audience of, like I said earlier, real estate agents that watch this podcast. And I think every real estate agent's dream is to become an investor, right? Because it's like, man, to not have to deal with all these clients and become your own client is kind of the dream. And it seems like a single family attached property is probably the place to start, right? Because they may not have the money to buy a mobile home park or an apartment building or whatever. So when you're doing these direct mail pieces to these single family attached homes, if somebody wants to start bringing that up, what type of a message are you sending to get them to reach out to you and call you?
Yeah, I mean, my letter is so super simple. It's like, hi, my name is Brandon. My wife and I are looking to buy a property in your area. So I bring the wife in, one, because she really is integral in my business, but also just because it's like, hey, this is a personality, like this is a personal thing. I want the person to get to know me a little bit. So my wife and I are looking to buy a property in your area, in that area. And we saw your house at, insert address here, and thought it might be a perfect fit. If you're looking to sell, please give me a call. Now, if you're an agent, you might just say, although I am an agent, or, PS. People love, the marketing. I read an article that said like they did some study and people read the PS of letters or emails more than they read anything else in an email. I thought that was fascinating. And so I was like, there's always a PS in every email I send, no matter what. Every piece of mail I send, there's always a PS, and it's always the most important thing. So you can add something, PS. I think mine says PS. I can close fast and can pay cash if that's what you're interested in, or something like that. If you're an agent, you can say, although I am an agent, I'm not looking to list your house. I'm looking to sell it. And of course, if they say, well, I don't want to sell it, but I want to list it, you can take that listing as well. Agents have it really good. I'm not an agent, but I should become one because I'm wasting so much opportunity. I leave so much on the table because people call me from direct mail, and it's like, I can't help them because I can't pay what they want for their house. But if I was an agent, I could get so many listings off that would pay for my direct mail, and it would almost be like free direct mail marketing, I'm leaving that on the table. Also, agents have like the best tools. I mean, you guys have access to the MLS. I don't. I have to go to like Redfin and try to find stuff that's like 8 hours old, and it sucks. Like, I just want to or I have to call my agent and he has to text me back, and then we'll go meet at the property tomorrow when he's free. And man, when you're an agent, there's no reason that I should be beating any agent to any deal, no matter what, because you guys have all the power. But I do all the time. It's because, agents are busy working on their business and not busy building their own.
Yep. Yep, love it, dude. So another question here. What advice would you give someone living in an area? Actually, let me click to see more here.
Sure.
So what advice would you give to someone living in an area where rents don't meet your 1% rule? I'm at where the average home is like 800 or 800,000, and the rents are like 2,400. How far would you travel to acquire rental property?
Yeah, good question. So a lot of people live in, my area is pretty cheap. I can buy a house for 100 grand. I mean, I bought a house for 15 grand once, but that was a weird case. But, I can buy a house for 100 and rent it out easily for 12, 13, $1,400 a month. If you live in an area like New York, Seattle, Boston, whatever, San Francisco, you have a couple options. What I say is you can either find a strategy that works within your market. I mean, there are probably thousands of real estate investors in your market right now becoming millionaires in your market. Find out how they're doing it. That's one way to do it. So maybe shift your strategy, or like the person asked, go outside your market. So I've got a buddy, his name is David Green, lives in San Francisco. He works a full-time job. He's a cop. The guy's awesome. And he's become a millionaire in the last couple of years buying rental properties, both in his area and across the country. So San Francisco, he buys in Florida, and he buys in San Francisco, or at least the Bay Area, right? So how does he do that? Well, he finds what works in his market, and he travels outside, maybe an hour outside of the city, and he can find properties for 250 grand that rent for 2,000, 2,500 a month, or maybe, whatever. The numbers work there. So he'll travel a little bit. So the question more specifically, you asked, how far would I travel? For a single family house, I'm not going to go and drive eight hours to go do that. For an apartment complex, I would fly for 2 days if I had to, so it kind of depends on the deal. But I say this a lot. In every single market in the US, every single market, no matter where you are, within a 2-hour drive, except for, maybe the middle of Alaska, but within a 2-hour drive of everywhere in the country, you can find good deals, good price deals where the price to rent ratios work a lot better. And so either switch your strategy, drive a couple hours to find that market, or, go somewhere across the country, and it can be done. I mean, this guy's doing Florida, so whatever.
Yep. Love it, dude. So then give us an idea. I know you kind of did earlier a little bit, but an idea of how much action it takes to acquire a deal. Because I see so many people just get burnt out because they're like, shit, man, I offered on these 12 properties and nothing's happened, and then they just step out of the game. And like you said, it's like 90% of your offers get rejected. So kind of on average, I mean, how many, I think before you said, 90%, so, 10 out of 100, 1 out of 10, is that still about accurate today for what people can be prepared for?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously it depends a lot on what you're offering. I mean, if you're really lowballing your offers, it can be a little harder. I actually have been getting more of mine accepted lately because I figured out that a strategy that works really well for me, I call it the BRRRR strategy. It's basically where I buy a property, I fix it up, flip it, and then I rent it out. Instead of buying to sell, I buy to rent. And then I just go to the bank and I get a new loan. So whether I use hard money or cash or private money or whatever I buy the property with, I go and rent it out, after it's fixed up, and I go get a brand new loan from the bank. And now the bank's like, hell yes, we'll give you a loan. You got a beautiful house, a great tenant, it's making tons of money, and you've got a ton of equity in it because I basically flipped it, right? So the reason I bring that up is because I can pay more than house flippers can because of that strategy. I can pay a little bit more than way more than what wholesalers can pay. So in other words, I can beat out almost every competition for a nasty house. And, John and Jill home buyer, they're not buying the nasty, smelly houses, which means that I can get a lot more of my offers accepted because my strategy works that way. But still, 1 in 10, if I can get 1 in 10, I consider that a success. So I'd say, aim for 1 in 10. If you're not getting 10, if you submit 20 offers, you don't get any accepted, then maybe you want to switch your strategy up a little bit, find a different way to do it.
Yep. So then from there, man, because it sounds like, just like every business, the fortunes and the follow-up, right? It's a lot of these nurtures. I mean, you might have somebody that comes in off your website that inquires, but maybe they're not ready for a year, but you've got to keep that relationship going. I mean, how important is it to be successful with investing, to have a database and keep that follow-up and that communication going long-term?
Yeah, it is super important. And I'll admit, I'm not the best at this. I mean, this is a definite area of weakness that I'm trying to focus on right now is, I'll mail people and then I'll mail them maybe twice. And then eventually it just kind of dies off, right? And I need to get back in there mailing. And I know that's a weakness of mine because they've done studies that the average direct mail response comes after number 7, I think it is. Most of your success is going to come after mailing them for 7, 8, 10, 15 times. Now you don't want to spam them every day, but I mean, the truth is, people go through different phases of their life. I mean, they might not want, they don't want to sell right now, but when you hit them at that right moment, when they hit them when, oh man, I just, just got notice from the tenant that they're going to be moving out and I do not want to rehab that property. Or, man, our tax, I mean, one of the ladies that we got a deal from, we did a really good flip last year. Tax season was coming up. She didn't want to sell until all of a sudden it was like, oh, she owes taxes on this property in like 3 weeks. Well, now she became very, very motivated. And I think, she wanted 80,000. We bought it for 40. I mean, for half the price she wanted, because that was the number that made sense to us. And so we just kept that relationship going, kept talking to her. Even when she said no to us the first time, came back. I bought a fourplex last year as well. I bought it for my daughter when she was a week old. It's kind of like her college education fund, which is just a cool strategy that people should do because it's awesome. But so I bought her a property the week she was old. We're going to pay it off over the next 15 years. But that property, that was almost the same numbers. He asked for like 90,000 for the property. And it was a pit. It needed a lot of work. But he asked for 90,000 for it. And we said, no way. It's way too much risk. We offered him 40 and he basically hung up the phone on us. A month later, calls back. So can you do 45? Yeah. Okay, we can do 45, because we kept that relationship up. And yeah. Short answer, very, very important.
Yeah. Love it, dude. So then, because I know you've got the book now too. I mean, what led or inspired you to go out there and write a book?
Sure. I mean, really, like my goal when I did the book, a couple of things. Let me go 2 angles. I'll go 2 angles from it. I'm a big believer in passive income from anything, right? From business, from whatever. So obviously, I'm not going to deny that writing a book, I figured would be a good way to make passive income, or at least income that doesn't require, putting in a certain amount of hours, right? But more than that, like I've read probably 1,000 real estate books. I don't think that's an exaggeration. The first year I was in real estate, I read hundreds. I mean, I just would go to the library, consume every book. I'd go to Barnes & Noble, read everyone there, just sitting in the chairs. What I realized is that almost every book was, I don't say short, but like not as comprehensive as it probably should be, because you pay the larger the book, the more you pay for it. And so when you're getting them printed and stuff, so like publishers tell people you need to keep your book short. I mean, 50,000 words, you don't want to go much more than that. So I thought, well, how do I make the most like comprehensive, like the single best book where you wouldn't have to read another book ever and you could succeed just fine with one. And so that's what we ended up doing. We actually ended up writing 2 because it ended up being so long. We wrote one on rental property investing and another one on managing. So combined, there's 250,000 words or something, which is a little bit larger than your average book.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. So then I know before you talked about, okay, so you've got the podcast, host of the podcast, you're an active real estate investor, but that you also do some internet sales. So kind of talk to us about that. I mean, what led to that, and give us an idea, because I know that you guys have a lot of tools for realtors and real estate investors, so kind of give us an idea about everything that you guys are doing there and kind of what led to that.
Sure. So I'm a big believer, BiggerPockets in general is a unique company in that we don't do the easy option of making money. Like we don't sell courses and stuff like that, which in real estate investing, there's really good money in selling products and courses. I mean, yeah, we have a book you can buy for $20, but Josh started the company saying we want to be a little different than most real estate education companies. So what we do is we monetize via tools. So we give out the information pretty much for free, podcast free, webinars. We do, classes. We do blog posts and forums, almost everything's like that free. The tools that we offer so we are basically a SaaS company, which is a software company. People can analyze deals, run the numbers on it, which is really, really helpful for investors, obviously, because like I said earlier, every property has a number. Your job is to figure out what that number is and then make that offer. And so we thought, well, how do we simplify that for investors? Okay, well, let's help them figure out exactly what number makes a home run deal, and then offer that. It's also super, super helpful for agents. I know a lot of agents that use the calculators who work with investors, and they run the numbers for the investor and they say, hey, here's the numbers on a deal I was just looking at. It's got charts and graphs and pictures and all this stuff. So then investors, their clients are blown away, and their agent takes kind of that little extra step. So that's kind of the primary way that BiggerPockets monetizes is through that business of selling pretty awesome software. And what's also cool is that I use it in my own business every single day. I don't analyze deals any other way anymore.
Yeah, and I thought at one time too, I heard that you guys do you have information that you're as far as lists and other things that you guys are offering as well?
So we partner with other companies that do that. Like there's different companies that we have relationships with, but we don't specifically ourselves offer it. Primarily because we just like the other companies do such a good job. I mean, there's companies like listsource.com and Melissa Data. I mean, they're really good data. And so like we could try to compete with them, but I'd rather just give people what's already working and do what we're good at as the software for analyzing deals.
Yep. Yep, love it, dude. That's awesome, man. So what's the name of the book again? And what's the name of the book? And then where's the best place to go if somebody wants to go pick it up? Where's the best place to go get it?
Sure. So the newer books, I wrote one a few years ago too. It's not quite as well. I won't say quite as popular. It's not quite as popular as the newer ones. So the first book I wrote was the book on investing in real estate with no and low money down. That one's all about just creative finance. That book actually was born because I was writing the rental property book, and chapter 1 ended up being 40,000 words, and it was all about creative finance. And I'm like, this is way too long. So we just made that its own book, and then 2 years later came out with the second book, which was the book on rental property investing. That's the one that's currently, I think, #1 real estate book in the country or in the world on Amazon. And then the second half of that was the book on managing rental properties. I co-wrote that one with my wife, and you can get all of them on Amazon or go to biggerpockets.com/bookstore.
Yep. Badass, dude. Love it. So then, got a question here. It looks like from somebody that might already be a member of BiggerPockets. Nice. But are you planning on anything else with BiggerPockets Pro membership?
Yes, actually. I mean, I can't talk a whole lot about it, but there's some cool things happening this year with Pro, for pros. And some of it involves, I don't know what I can say. Anyway, some of it involves like, stuff to help if you're a landlord or if you're a flipper, like your contracts, your, documents, your legal stuff that people spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars a year on. We want to find a way to make that available for all of our pro members, to save all of our pro members thousands of dollars a year. That's kind of our goal. So yeah, that cool stuff is happening in the next 2 months. I believe it should be out here by midsummer.
Yeah, that's badass, dude. So again, those watching and listening, we'll have links to all this stuff right below, so you can go pick up the books, go check out BiggerPockets. But I'm assuming the website's just BiggerPockets.com.
BiggerPockets.com, yeah.
Yep, epic, dude. So a couple last questions for you, man.
Sure.
If knowing everything that you know now, right, with all the experiences that you had, now all the successes and overcoming, a lot of the obstacles and adversity that you overcome, if you could rewind the clocks and go back and give yourself like 2 pieces of advice, like if the Brandon today could go back to the Brandon when you first started this and give yourself 2 pieces of advice that you feel would have really catapulted your success, what would that look like?
Yeah, I mean, one big thing was I would have associated with more people who were successful. I had a few people that I looked up to, some mentors in my area, but I kind of took it like I'm Brandon Turner, I'm smart enough, I got this. Like I did a lot of learning by mistakes, which is great. I mean, you can learn by mistakes. We all learn from mistakes, but it would have been a whole lot better to learn from other people's mistakes rather than my own, right? I mean, I had one time I bought, actually, the house I told you earlier, I lost 10 grand on. I had a lender, a hard money lender, who was an super experienced real estate investor who had been doing this for his whole life. Well, I went to him first for the loan, and he said, no, it's not a good enough deal. You're going to lose money on this. And I said, watch me. I'll do this. And I did it, and I lost money on it. Like, I should have listened to him. I should have surrounded myself with people who were successful. And that's one of the fun things about real estate. And this applies to both agents and investors, is that when you're young and you're passionate and you're excited, and by young, it's a relative term, but when you're younger than somebody else and you show that enthusiasm and you show that passion, the older investors, or the older agents in that case, they love to latch on to the younger people because they're like, oh, I remember when I was his age. I remember when I was her age. Like, I want to help them. I mean, the investor that sold me the property last week for seller financing, he didn't do it because he needed the money. He did it because I'm a young investor, up and coming, and he's 70 years old. And he was like, I want this kid to have this deal. Like, he didn't have to sell me that property. He did it because he sees something in me that reminds him of himself. So I would have totally latched onto that so much more with so many more people. I would have made best friends with every investor in my town. I would have started a local meetup group and had, been the guy in charge of bringing together dozens, if not hundreds of investors every month. Yeah, I think you learn from the people you associate with. What's that quote? You are the average of the 5 people you associate with the most. Yeah, I would have done a lot more of that. So that's a big one. And then, of course, like I said earlier, treating my business like a business. I would have, analyzed a whole lot more deals, made a whole lot more offers, and not been so afraid of just, telling somebody what I could pay for the property and getting rejected.
Yep, badass, dude. So, a question I get like daily on the podcast is from real estate agents that, maybe they're not at the point where they want to become an investor themselves, but they want to meet investors and take on investors as clients. Because if you got somebody buying, a dozen or 2 dozen or 3 dozen properties a year from me, and especially in the flip game, because you're able to find them the deal and then sell the deal, right? It can become a realtor's best friend or dream client. How can agents go out there and offer a value and make themselves valuable to investors to create that great relationship?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, I also wonder why agents some agents don't like working with investors, and I get why, because we make a lot of offers and some of them waste time. But if you can get a good investor, not just somebody who's just, pretending, but you get a good investor, it can, 1 or 2 investor clients can make your entire business and help you work way fewer hours. So the things that you can do is, 1, be available and be quick. I mean, when in today's market, when a house comes on the market that's going to be perfect for me in terms of the price is right, or, something I'm excited about, it needs a lot of work, there's going to be other people interested in, I want to make an offer and have it accepted before anybody else in my entire area doesn't even knows it's on the market. I want to be quick. So last week I made an offer on a deal. They listed it at 3:00 in the afternoon. I had an offer in on the property by 4:00. It was I didn't even look at the property. I just made the offer because I knew the property. I knew what it was like. And I knew at least I needed to get in negotiation with the seller immediately. And I want an agent that can do that. So if you can be responsive and not afraid to make some offers. Now, again, I'm not saying I make my agent go out and put 20 offers a month that are just complete low balls. I'm not doing that to him. But I want him to be able to put in those offers when I need to. Another thing is data. As an investor, I don't have data. You guys have data. I need that data. I need to know what's selling, what's not, what markets are moving, what ones aren't. Are we seeing trends in one way or another? Agents have that stuff that if you can supply that to an investor, they will love you for that.
Yep. Love it, man.
If I could plug something, not even plug, if I can tell you.
Yeah, of course, dude.
Anyway, I wrote a blog post on it, actually called The Ultimate Guide to Working with Investors for Agents, or the Real Estate Agent's Ultimate Guide to Working for Investors. So I just wrote a really, really long blog post a while ago about it. It's just biggerpockets.com/agent guide, AGENTGUIDE, agent guide. And there's no opt-in or anything. It's just a blog post that I thought was all my thoughts on that topic.
Yeah, no, I'll make sure that Troy gets a copy of it. So those watching and listening, again, everything that Brandon's talked about here, all the links, even the blog post we'll have all right below, whether you're on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, the website, it'll all be in the show notes. So you can just click right there to it and go check it out. So that's killer, man. So love it, man. So, I created this podcast, I think is a lot of people that create podcasts, to go out there and deliver great information to an industry that's changed their life, and those that are watching and listening right now are here because they want to go out there and create an amazing, epic life for themselves and their family. Do you have any last maybe pieces of words or advice that you'd like to leave them with so they can go out there and do exactly that?
I think people, when you have a goal that you're trying to accomplish, when you know what you want, when you define the objective, most people can accomplish what they want. I'll give you an example. So I'm doing an exploratory filming for a possible TV show. It probably will never work out, and that's okay. I don't know if I'd want it anyway, but we're doing the filming. So 2 weeks ago, I was talking to this production company, and they're coming out to my area, and they're going to film. And I decided a week and a half before they're coming out that I needed a good property to work on. I didn't have a property. I had a couple on the market trying to sell them, but I had no good rehabs to get in there and get dirty for the filming. And I thought, I have 9 days till they show up here to film. And then I set a goal for myself. I said, okay, I want to buy a property and have it closed by the time the film crew comes out here so I can get my hands dirty. And I went out there, and 9 days later, I closed on that one I told you from that investor. So I knew what I wanted, to define the objective, and I just went after it with everything that I had. The problem that most people have is they haven't defined their objective. They say they kind of loosely, I want to get rich, or I want to work less hours or whatever. But I think it's so important. Define what you want in life very specifically, and then spend all your time and effort, or at least a majority of it, going after that one thing. And stop just talking about in generalities of I want to buy real estate someday. It's no, I want to buy an apartment complex in the next 12 months. I'm going to buy it in this state. I'm going to pay this much money for it, and here's how I'm going to find it. And then all of a sudden you've got a plan, you know what you're doing, and then just get to work and hustle until you get it. Nobody trying to lose 20 pounds or get a 6-pack. You don't go to the gym on a Monday and then go back a week and a half later and then go run on the treadmill. And then 2 weeks later, you go back and do a couple deadlifts. And that's never going to get you in shape, right? You go there and you're like, okay, I'm going to do these 9 lifts. I'm going to do it every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. This is what my diet's going to look like, and this is how I'm going to get there. And I'm hiring a personal trainer to help me get there. Like, that's how you get something done, right? So take it from a bodybuilder, not that I'm wanting to, but that's how bodybuilders do it. That's how anybody trying to lose weight does it. Have a plan, go after it.
Yep. Awesome, man. Powerful words. And those that are watching and listening, I know we interview podcasts with this, you guys, but information without implementation is truly just the start of delusion. Information is not power. It's taking that information, taking action on it that creates power inside your world. So Brandon shared so many amazing pieces of advice with you guys today. And again, everything that Brandon talked about, websites, BiggerPockets website, his books, the blog post that he talked about, all that will be linked right below. So to make sure to take action on that. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. Brandon, man, I know how busy you are. This has been a true honor having you on the show, dude. Truly appreciate it.
Well, thank you. This has been a blast. So thank you very much.
Yeah, 100%. All right, you guys, we will see you next time.